Please welcome to the stage Editor-in-Chief of Bloomberg Editorial and Research, John Micklethwait.
Thank you very much. Our final guest does not need much of an introduction. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the President of Ukraine, has been in many of our thoughts and also a lot of the news, not just over the past 48 hours, but over most of the past year, very depressingly. We have a lot of questions for the President, both about the events of the past few days, the end of the war, and of course the bigger issue of the economic reconstruction of Ukraine. But first he has asked for the chance to address this forum briefly. So we'll hand over to him. As I think most of you know, you do have headsets underneath your seats. Channel 2 is Mandarin, Channel 3 is Ukrainian, and Channel 4 is English. Thank you very much. President Zelenskyy, welcome to the New Economic Forum. You are here. Please take it away.
Thank you very much, John. Dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention to Ukraine. Our today's conversation finalizes practically the work of your forum, and this is very symbolic because the global situation will directly depend on when and how the Russian aggression will finish. You can see how many threats have been provoked by this aggression to the world. I'll give you just 3 examples, but there are more of them, much more than 3. Just now there was yet another terrorist attack. In the morning, dozens of missiles hitting civil targets predominantly. Russia is hitting the electricity and heat for people, heating power stations and other energy infrastructure. This is the daily reality in Ukraine, the Russian terror. This is why we're contributing so much effort to get the modern air defense and anti-missile defense from the partners. Plus, we have more than 1,000 kilometers of front warfare. What does it mean from the global point of view? Instead of investing trillions of dollars in the development of the human capital, the world is going to spend a huge amount of money to re-equip their weaponry. Additionally, now everyone is watching very carefully how we are defending ourselves in Ukraine, looking at the performance of the weapons, which tactics would work better, which defense systems perform the best. To be honest, just several countries could have been doing the same in terms of protecting themselves from aggression with the same intensity as we are doing this. It's just they don't have so many shells and weapons to do this. But potential aggressors and potential frozen conflicts that can spark up again are more than such countries that can defend themselves. So that we have a huge deficit of security because the more forms of terror Russia is using, and they will be used in the world for new weapons and protecting themselves, preventing these such strikes that we are going through. Another example, instead of focusing most of our attention to green transformation, different governments are looking for cheaper oil supply, gas supply, or coal supply to reduce energy prices. The price of energy and not the purity of energy becomes number 1 for many countries. And this wouldn't have been the case had it not been for Russian aggression and the use of energy resources by Russia as a weapon. The third example, just in a couple of weeks, artificially, we have the threat of famine for dozens of millions of people, not because of the drought or crisis, but because of the blockade of our ports. We are the exporting country of food products. For dozens of years, the world hasn't seen anything similar. Any new catastrophe because of the high prices on food or famine means subtracting more years from global development. You have been discussing many topics during your forum, but how many of them do not depend of what Russia or has done or will do with its aggression. Just a few of them. So when Ukraine is proposing the peace formula, this is truly a peace formula, not just for us, but for the whole world. The comprehensive threat requires comprehensive response. Just a simple ceasefire will not do the trick. This is our formula. It has to be sustainable and long-term peace. Just by simple mitigating the crisis caused by Russia will not bring back the stability. We have to dismantle each and every threat. During the Indonesia summit, I presented our proposal of the reliable peace and dismantling of Russian threat, and I'm grateful to all the countries who are supporting the Ukrainian peace formula. And now I would like to give one more argument. What does peace mean? This is very practical. It means saving lives, stabilization, and development in the first place. Joining the rebuilding of Ukraine, many companies and countries are getting additional growth incentives. When we restore our territorial integrity and will have reliable peace, Ukraine will become the reliable source of new global development. This is not just about economy. This is about modern economy. Just to give you three more examples, Ukraine is prepared to replace the dirty fossil fuels from Russia with the green energy of ours. We have huge potential in the low-carbon energy sector. Ukraine is capable of becoming a key partner to European Union for the purposes of decarbonization. We can become the suppliers of green hydrogen and green power to Ukraine. Climate conditions, green fields, energy resources of wind and solar will allow us to produce energy at a very low cost. Just 3 years before Russian aggression, we have created 7 gigs of reliable sources, and we have much more capability. Plus, we can produce dozens of million tons of cheap ammonia, plus nuclear energy and power infrastructure, which is connected to the energy grid of the European Union. Now, Russian missile terror is aiming our energy at our energy capabilities. Russia just in one day before yesterday, launched almost 100 missiles against our power infrastructure, and yet today again. So the losses are colossal, but it means that rebuilding will have to be a large-scale project, and I'm inviting your countries and your companies to start joining this rebuilding initiative. We have the decision of one of the biggest Australian investment groups who committed first $500 million into the green growth of Ukraine under 25 billion rebuilding facility of Ukraine. And I'm grateful to Mr. Andrew Forrest for his decision to be the first, and Larry Fink from BlackRock in helping to structure this fund. Another example is resources. A modern economy needs lithium, graphite, and other rare metals. In some of these resources, we have the biggest deposits in Europe, and this is in itself is a colossal opportunity, plus transport capability, machine building capacity, our culture of labor, and access to the lead markets of the world. So this is the basis of the growth that everyone needs. The third, the agricultural sector. The world knows that without Ukrainian agricultural export, the challenge of food supplies cannot be resolved. And we've just made the decision of extending our grain supply 120 days, but we want to have unlimited duration of this initiative. Plus, we have initiated the Grain from Ukraine program so that together with partners, we could produce and give as much food support to the poorest countries as we can. But bringing back peace to Ukraine means that we will not just be able to stabilize the market in response to the crisis, but to safeguard the food stability and prevention of any further crisis. And I just have given three examples. There are much more of them. The peace in Ukraine is a global need, not just the peace or simulacra of ceasefire which Russia would abuse to prepare for the new war, but the real peace. And I know we can achieve this, but for this we have to safeguard the global unity. We have to be protecting the global honesty, impose more pressure on Russia for the terror, and cooperate together with us for the future development. Thank you very much again for your attention. Let us reach reliable peace. Slava Ukraini.
President Zelenskyy, thank you very much. You have a...
Thank you.
You have given a very eloquent defense of Ukraine's position and of your future possibilities. Can we just clear one thing up at the beginning? The rocket that landed in Poland, you know that Poland, the United States and others are saying that it appears to be one of your defensive rockets. I think it's clear no one blames you for this. You were trying to shoot down Russian missiles as they came in. But you have, as far as I can see, insisted that the rocket that hit Poland was fired by Russia. I wonder if you still stand by that.
Thank you for this question. First of all, everyone has to understand that there were about 100 missiles that were launched on that day. And I'm grateful for the world for the support of Ukraine with air defense and anti-missile defense. But nevertheless, you can see what are the consequences and aftermath of the Russian war. This is not the first time that the whole missile, a piece of missile of Russia falls down on the territory of another country. Some time ago, the same thing happened. The pieces of the Russian missiles fell on the territory of Moldova, and it was aiming at Ukrainian territory. I don't know what happened this time. We don't know 100%. I think the world also doesn't know what happened 100% in that situation. But I'm sure that this is a Russian missile, and I'm sure that we were launching the air defense missiles, but we can't say specifically that this was the air defense of Ukraine, although we are grateful for not being blamed because we are fighting against Russian missiles on our territory. But nevertheless, we have to be fair and honest. Until the investigation is over, we can't say what kind of missile or what pieces of which missile fell on the Polish territory. What we have seen, the pictures, the diameter of the hole, shows that it couldn't have been just the remnants of the air defense. That's what the military told me. But again, I would like to emphasize that the most important is for the investigation to take place. Yesterday, we insisted for us to be part of joint international investigative group, and late at night we got the confirmation, and early in the morning our professionals will go to the site and will be part of this professional investigation.
Thank you for clearing that up. Since the summer, your military has made enormous progress in regaining your territory, most obviously Kherson. I suppose the question I have for you is, what about Crimea, which Vladimir Putin annexed in 2014? Is your war aim now to retake Crimea, or would merely taking back the Donbass be enough?
Thank you for this question. Our war is the war for our lives. As you do remember, the scale of occupation by Russia of our territory and what happened since the 24th of February. And our objective was to stay strong and bring back the life and peace on our land. Unless we deoccupy our whole territory, this will not bring peace to us. Unfortunately, this is the leader of Russian Federation. This is his decision. We see this. They don't want Ukraine to develop. Ukraine has chosen its way forward, and it will develop. And it is developing. In some areas, we're developing faster, even during the war, than Russia Federation, which doesn't have war on its soil. And so for the stability of the situation for our country, we have to take certain steps. And I think that restoration of territorial integrity of our country is one of those important steps to be made, and also the support of international community investments and etc.
To be absolutely clear about it, deoccupying, as you put it, includes Crimea. It is an important difference, because it would be taking the border back to where it was, the effective border where it was in 2014. Is that your starting point before peace can happen?
The Crimea is part of Ukraine. This is not just a state within a state. It's part of our country and part of our sovereignty. Therefore, indeed, the occupation of the Crimea and Donbass will bring the end to the war.
What is your estimate now for when the fighting might end? You just talked about a long-term peace. When might the fighting end?
As of now, we've deoccupied one big regional capital that Russia managed to occupy since the 24th of February, the only one that they occupied, and that's Kherson. It's a big territory. Kherson region, in terms of area, can fit several countries of the world, and that's a big and important territory to Ukraine. So the next steps are difficult because there's Donbass, there's Kharkiv Oblast. We almost deoccupied the whole Kharkiv Oblast. So the Donbass and the Crimea, and also the left bank of the Dnieper River, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is being occupied, Zaporizhzhia Oblast. So no one can tell that this will happen tomorrow. But I would ask the question, who does this depend on? Right now, I heard the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Egypt, and I took note. He said, the resolution of war depends on the political will of those who are involved in the conflict. He said it very carefully, as any political figure. We are not involved in the conflict, and I would like just to respond to that. We were involved by Russian Federation. They came into our territory. Our political will since the very beginning was to deal with this in a diplomatic manner. So our political will doesn't determine the end of the war. We didn't start anything to want to end it. Of course we want to end the war. We want the Russia to go away. So it depends on the political will of the Russian Federation. To be honest, not even the Russian Federation, but a group of people who manage and lead Russian Federation. So the time of putting the end to the war depend on them. On our side, if there is that political will on their side, we will. If there is no political, we will go forward and continue deoccupying our territory. That's one. Two, it also depends on what Egypt has demonstrated, that this is not just resolving an issue or a challenge. This is the war with its own crisis, a crisis that spread to the whole world. It was done not only to Ukraine, and the countries should acknowledge this, not to be afraid and not just to say conflict instead of war. And then this war, with the joint support of international community, will be resolved in a very swift manner.
You said in October that you are potentially open to talks with Russia, but not while Vladimir Putin is president. Does that really make sense? Putin is the president, short of the Russians removing him. That means there is no chance of peace talks whilst he is still president. Do you still stick by that?
As I said, if Russia does another referendum, pseudo-referendum that is not acknowledged by anyone in the world, if they acknowledge our territories as their territories, the leader with such position will not be acknowledged by us. Me as a president cannot have any negotiations with him. That's what I said. And they conducted the referendum, and I said there's no point of talking to this person. There's no point. He will not change his policy. This is the occupying policy. He's talking about peace, just like he said, just during the G20, and on that same day, just with this audacity, he launches 100 strikes against Ukraine. What can we talk about? Putin is not one person. These are several people, and there's nothing to talk about with these several people today. If tomorrow they are prepared to take the peace formula, if they are ready to withdraw from our territory, deoccupy Ukraine, and acknowledge that this is a tragedy and not just a mistake, that this is a tragedy of them being aggressors. If they are ready to compensate, or as it is prescribed in the peace formula, if they are ready to accept it, only then we can start thinking about talking to this group of people. And if in Russia there will be other people who would be prepared on the diplomatic level to acknowledge the peace formula in any format, but first of all acknowledge our territorial integrity, that we are a subject, that we are same people as they are, that they will have to acknowledge that you can't destroy Ukrainians, you can't rape people, you can't kill children. If such people will appear in Russia, we are ready to talk to them, of course.
You've described very accurately the way that the Ukrainian economy has got hit, contracted by, I think, 30% of the past year. You have inflation at 26%. You've got around 40% of your power facilities out in the attacks. The question of how you get the economy going again, what are the industries you want to focus on? And you have an audience of investors. Where is the place that you most want investment from abroad and help from abroad?
Thank you for this question. First of all, I think that we're doing all we can, and the world is helping us in protecting the sky, and 40% of our energy infrastructure was hit, so energy is very relevant. Also, gas production is another priority sector. We have not shrinked our IT sector. It's growing, to the contrary. So some of the technologies that we've developed before the full-fledged aggression, some of the technologies really triggered. We have the stability in the IT sector. We were protected from cyber attacks. There was a huge number of cyber attacks, and they continued. We still stand strong. So all services are still operating in Ukraine, the banking system, etc. So IT sector is developing very strongly. Also, because of the war, we have a very strong development of the technologies. We said that we're going to build the fleet of sea drones, and many of such things are being developed. And here we see a huge potential. And agriculture as one of the key and areas, of course. So we are very open. We invite everyone to come, all the areas starting from extraction to technologies. I think your investments will be strengthened not only by your will, but also by our protection. We have started discussion with the World Bank. Yesterday we had a meeting with the vice president of the World Bank, and we are saying that the World Bank, and we will start the pilot with them to ensure investments in Ukraine. I think that will contribute as well, and that would give assurance to the business to invest in Ukraine.
You mentioned the grain deal and the exports of grain, and that looks as if it's sort of going to roll over. The other big issue is fertilizer. You produce a lot of the world's fertilizer, and everyone is worried about the fact it's stuck, including Russian fertilizer. Do you think there is room for a deal on that as well?
Thank you for this question. Grain deal is already extended. This is not negotiated, so it's already a fact. 4 months more, as I said in my statement, but one of the items of the peace formula is that it has to be unrestricted. Apart from the grain deal, you have to understand we have grown strongly in logistics. We have built different pathways during this war in the several months, and that's another area where the investments could come, and we invite them. But also the processing industry. You're talking, so I think you mentioned the ammonia transit. I said that we can agree to this only if the humanitarian aspect of exchange of all our soldiers to all their soldiers. We don't want to trade with Russia and help them, because this is our enemy, and unless they change the tactics, this is not possible. The only where we can talk about the UN, about the chemicals, about the fertilizers, I explained this to the General Secretary, and all the partners know this. Only if we will exchange all the captives, our captives for their captives.
Ukraine is dependent on foreign financial aid. The European Union has, I think it's roughly $3 billion a month, and yet some people think the European Union has been quite slow to deliver the money it's promised. Why won't Brussels move faster to help you?
First of all, we're grateful to all the partners for the financial assistance they provide. We do have a deficit in the budget, and of course, the economy during the war is not working as it used to work before, and how it will work after the war. So the 3 billion per month from European Union is what we're getting. We're not getting. We would be grateful if we could have received them, but we are grateful for what we already have. We're getting from EU partners, from Great Britain, from Canada, big assistance from the United States, and several other governments bilaterally from the European Union, ad hoc assistance. It goes slowly because there is this institutional aspects and bureaucracy, of course. Of course, we would want to do it faster. We're now discussing with the EU to close the deficit gap for 2023 and the support for the Ukrainian budget in the amount of 18 billion next year. Ursula von der Leyen confirmed this capability and the political will to do so, and that we'll be able to get that. But we are during the war. This is why, as the president of the country at war, I would like to say that we're all grateful, but I have to be more pragmatic. Until we get it, I can't say that we got it. So, but we believe in this.
Can I ask you to move from the pragmatism of your current situation, which everyone understands? You're at war, you're under attack. But if you look forward to Ukraine after the war, how will Ukraine be different after the war than it was before? To give you one example, many of us, when we came to Ukraine, one persistent worry was corruption. Will the new Ukraine that everyone admires so much at the moment, but the Ukraine that emerges from the war, will it be different like that? You famously ran for president not to fight a war, but to get rid of corruption. How will Ukraine be different in 4 or 5 years?
First of all, there will not be political influence of Russia on Ukraine, and secondly, there will not be influence of Russian capital. They withdrawn from our companies. We've pushed them out. The political parties that they were influencing are banned, and they will not participate in the next election. So the information or influence on our development and geopolitical direction will not be there as well. And this is very important because that shapes the independence of our country and also investments and the condition with corruption. There will be no corruption. We don't have it now, of course, because we're all united around our country. Many people, corrupt people, have left the country with their money, and we will do our best for them to stay where they now are. The most important things that we have to focus on, we are united. Only those who want to protect their country. No one will be able to forgive corruption in future after the war, because we've lived through very difficult challenges and war. Technologically, there will be no corruption, because during this time we will have done everything to make sure that it works online. We already have cuts in the management of our government agencies. There should be less government in the business. So this is why we're doing all services digitally. So we've started this with COVID because of the pandemics, but during the war we have boosted this with new dynamic. So all the services are going to be electronic, so there will not be contact with the civil servants, and there will not be pressure on business. And this talks about the independence of economy and transparency of investments. And these are the most important things. I think that many people who have left Ukraine, many families with children and students who want to come back and build their country based on different values. And I think that this will be a completely different country where I would like to welcome you to come.
Well, I think if you are fighting a war, it is always good to have a dream. And I hope that you realize yours. President Zelenskyy, thank you very much for talking to the New Economy Forum. Thank you very much for talking to Bloomberg. And I'm sure the audience would like to give you a round of applause. Thank you.
What I would like to say is that this is not a dream. This is a deferred reality.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.